Okay, I do see some new names on our session today. So this is Ed Crow with Crow and Associates, and today we're going to talk about working from a call center environment as a hourly employee and moving over to independent phone sales. So we'll talk about that situation, but this should cover a couple other questions that you may have. So if you are an independent agent already or work for an agency or have an agency, this should give you some information too regarding moving from a call center to an independent phone sales and some of what it takes to do independent phone sales. So it should help in that regard too. So today we'll talk about those who actually work at a call center right now, so the call center environment, the challenges that they face transitioning to independent. We work with a lot of former call center agents, so we've had a chance over the last couple of years to see what kind of what the challenges and differences are for them. What the benefits are for those people that change. Then, like I said, kind of a kill two birds with one stone here thing. We're going to talk about starting an official independent call center, what the requirements are for that. And then what you see a lot of agencies do that can't quite meet all the call center requirements is they'll operate as a quasi call center, as we call it. And we'll talk about that a little. And then lastly, just talk about the leads that call centers tend to utilize. There's a number of them, but we'll talk about some of them and some of them that are more reasonable for a quasi call center to use as well. Okay, so in the call center environment, you have licensed call center agents who work for these call centers. There's a number of them. The carriers have their own internal call centers, and then there's a lot of independent ones out there now. Some of them are very large, and they almost always operate the same way. Usually the people working for those call centers are hourly. Depending on where they are in the country, they're anywhere from $13 to $17 an hour. If I have any people on this webinar right now that are call center agents, you might have you know what I'm talking about. You might have a slight variation in how that's set up, but it's pretty much the same. So they're usually anywhere from $13 up to a max of like $17 an hour, and then they usually get anywhere from $15 to $35, sometimes a little more per app with no renewal. So they almost never own the book, and they're usually not getting renewals. It's hourly with just some kind of per app with a bonus is usually how it's set up. And as I said, usually little to nothing on the renewals, in most cases nothing. So oftentimes we get calls from these people who have been working for a call center. They're writing a lot of business. I mean, we get people that write sometimes 40, 50 apps a month for a call center. And they want to know, what does it take, what is it like going from that environment where you're paid hourly, just getting a little bit per app with no renewal, going to an independent agency side? Because obviously the idea of just getting all the commission, CMS allowable commission with renewals, and knowing when they look back at the business they've written, they realize, I could be making hundreds of thousands in renewals every year at this point. So it seems like a great idea, and it is, but there certainly are some challenges to it. So the challenges are, the first thing is, if you're on a budget, not being paid hourly, if you don't have cash on hand and some reserves, it can be tough, losing the hourly pay, because when you go independent, in most cases, that's going to be a scenario where you're a commissioned salesperson. Also, a change for them is often paying the licensing fees. So when you work for a call center, most call center employees, they might be licensed in 38, 40 states. And the company, because they're keeping all the renewals, they will pay for the licensing fees. So sometimes it's a shock for that person if they come over to independent and say, I want to get all my renewals. I want to get all the money that's being paid on Medicare. I realize how much that is. But they're licensed in 38 states. Sometimes they'll be surprised to know there's licensing fees every year or 2 years in those states. So that's something new to them. And then the other thing that people don't take into consideration are the need to pay non-resident appointment fees with some carriers. So some companies don't charge non-resident appointment fees every year. Aetna is an example of that. If you're appointed with Aetna in 30 states, you don't pay fees for the non-resident ones. Some companies, though, a lot of them, in fact, and especially some of the really big ones, they charge a non-resident appointment fee in every single state, and it's not the same amount. It depends on the state. It can range greatly. It can range from $30 in a state to $250 in a state, depending on where you are. So it can be expensive when coming from that call center environment over into independent. Usually what we tell people is we'll pare your states down. What states do you really sell the most in? Maybe let's have you start in just those states, and then you can add all the additional ones when you'd like. The other big change for them is E&O. This is a big change for people coming from the carrier side or call center side. When you're on the independent side, you need to carry E&O. All the carriers will require it now. And E&O insurance is something that you need to carry. You get a policy for yourself and you pay for it. We offer E&O to agents that work with us. It's $300 a year. There's certainly other areas and avenues to get it. You can get it from wherever you'd like. You can get E&O from NAPA is a common one. CalSurance is another one for E&O. Ranges $400 to $500 a year. Usually our price is pretty good at $300 for E&O. Sometimes, for example, Pinnacle will have a promotion through a different vendor where you can get an E&O for a really good deal. I know a couple years there, Aetna had E&O for independent agents that was inexpensive as well. So, but regardless, the need to purchase E&O is something new. And then, of course, the need to learn new systems. And the biggest one is to generate leads. When you sit at a call center or work for the ICA for a carrier, they might not be the best leads in the world, but nonetheless, you're not paying for them and they're feeding you leads. And in our business, independent agent, it's nice because we get all the commissions and all the renewals, so we can build substantial income. But getting in front of people is a challenge, especially when somebody's not just feeding you leads that you don't have to pay for. Because on the independent side, you've got to find a lead source. We certainly can recommend some, but you got to find one you're comfortable with. And then there's the cost of it. Now, we do have a lead program I'll talk about in a little bit, but, and that's going to help with cost. But still, nonetheless, there's work there to be done and there's costs for leads. They're not just being sent to you. So that is definitely a big change. Obviously, the benefits of going independent are the money. I mean, pretty straightforward. The money that you make, you own the book of business and all the renewals. So if you want to use one of their higher paying states examples, obviously New Jersey, California are high comp states. There's 672 on a new Advantage and then 336 on a renewal. So, and you own that book. So regardless of where you go, what upline you work with or what you do, you continue to own that book and you can rely on those renewals. So if you look at an agent that's writing 20 apps a month for a call center, that agent at that pace in 3 years would have 720 cases on the books. I assumed a 10% attrition because obviously people pass away or you lose some, people moved other plans or whatever. 10% is high, it's more like 5. But I assume 10 for the example. So that person at that 20 app pace, I mean, they're going to be making $217,000 in renewals by year 3. If you're at an agency level independent, if you add even the lowest level of overrides in there, there'd be another $30,000 on top in just overrides. So the biggest reason to go from an internal rep at a company or to go from a call center to independent is clearly the money. I mean, that's the reason you do it. It's more setup. There's more on your plate as far as being set up correctly, but the money's pretty apparent. Okay, so I get a lot of people coming from the call center or just a lot of agents or agencies that are independent already. And, they'll say, well, we want to be an official call center. And ideally for a call center agent, that would be the best transition. Closing, being an official call center would give you the ability to close all cases by phone and voice signature. And a call center agent, that's what they're used to. They're used to talking to the person, getting the scope, getting the enrollment just by phone, no links, no emails, done. Independent agents and agencies that are official call centers have the ability to do that. There's a process to be an official call center, however. But if you are, you can do scopes, you can do enrollments by pure voice signature, just like you can when you work for a call center, because technically you are one at that point if you're an official one. To be a call center, there's some challenges in getting the approval. And really the challenge is just having the requirements in place. We have a dedicated team that are former employees and managers of call centers with carriers. They have all the script approvals, they have all the know-how, and they can fast track official call center approvals for agents and agencies. However, you got to have the requirements in place in order for them to submit to get that approval. The first thing is most of the carriers are going to require to be an official call center that you have a minimum number of 5 agents licensed and on payroll. So you got to have them ready. Call agents licensed on payroll is the first step. You need a full-time sales manager. You need a full-time compliance officer. Now, if you're the head of an agency, you can operate as one of those, but you cannot be both. You need approval on all the phone scripts. Those are carrier specific. Again, our team already has pre-approval on that. Nonetheless, it's something that they have and they can get for you, but that is needed. And then lastly, to be an official call center is a production minimum. The minimum with most companies is 500 cases per year. There are a couple that are higher than that are 1,000. And I mentioned that you need to have 5 licensed and certified agents on payroll ready to go. That's with most companies. There are a couple that require 10. There's really one, and United Healthcare requires 10 currently. The rest require 5. I talked over my slide a little bit there. As I said, we have a unit that's set up, and that's what they do is fast track agencies to become official call centers all the time. They know the requirements. They have all the pre-approved scripts. You just have to have all the requirements in place for them to apply and get you approval. And then the one last challenge for somebody that wants to go from working at a call center to being their own official call center, or an agent or agency that wants to be one, is lead cost. I mean, that's a big one. Usually to supply your call center agents with leads, you would either use telesales leads, sometimes Facebook leads, or a combination of both, and online leads. Those are the usual sources. I get a lot of questions about, well, can you use mailers for this, Ed? Well, you can. I do see some call centers that supplement their lead source with mailers, but it's really too slow because by the time the lead order drops, first of all, you don't know what you're going to get back for a return, and there's a 2, 3, sometimes 4-week delay from the drop to when you get the leads. So mailers usually aren't the first choice when it comes to providing leads to call center agents. Again, usually telesales. We have a company that we negotiated a price with. They do telesales leads at $10 each. Your close ratio on those, on average, is 10 to 15%. The best agents close 25% of them. Those are $10 a piece. It's a recorded call. The call is sent to you the same day to try to convert those leads. But even if you assume if you have a call center and you want to supply your call center agents with leads, a minimum of 20 leads a day. Usually it's more than that. But even at that a minimum amount, if you're giving each of them 20 leads a day, you're talking $1,000 a day in lead cost. So there are some challenges to being a call center. If you're an individual agent coming from working for a call center, you can't be an official call center just on your own. You got to have a minimum number of seats. So it's really more of an agency setup to be a call center. So a lot of times what happens is they'll say, well, I can't meet those requirements, Ed, and that's where the quasi-call center comes into place. So if you as a former call center agent or an independent agent or agency can't meet those requirements, there still are ways you can operate as a call center, but not an official one. So you would operate in a similar fashion. Doing it as a quasi-call center, there's much lower startup costs and obviously many fewer requirements. You still need to purchase leads. You still have to, if you're going to do sales by phone, you're going to have to buy leads. But our lead program will help with that expense. Our lead program reimburses up to $500 a month for lead purchase costs. So the way this would work, the first way to do a quasi-call center is you simply are a contracted agent. You purchase leads, use our lead program to help offset the expense. I'd usually recommend telesales leads because they're the quickest and most reliable. You talk to the prospect, and then you close them on Connect for Medicare or Sunfire. So we provide both of those platforms at no cost. You can use one or both. It doesn't cost you anything. And those not familiar with it, Connect for Medicare and Sunfire allows you to go on, send either a text or email, talk to the client on the phone, and then go on and compare plans, find the best plan for them, and then send a text or email for them to enroll in the company that you've chosen for them. On both systems, you can either send them the text to fill it out or email to fill it out themselves, or you can pre-fill out the entire application and scope and then just text or email them just to confirm, basically, so that way they don't have to fill anything out. Again, if you're purchasing leads, you can buy any leads you want, but if you're going to try to specifically do phone sales as a quasi-call center, usually it's telesales leads, sometimes Facebook leads, but the telesales leads you can get for $10 each. Of course, we offer support with contracting because often somebody coming from an internal position, either with a call center or a carrier, that's something new for them too, is figuring out what companies to contract with and getting those set up, and we will help with that because the process does take a little doing, for lack of a better way to put it. So the negatives of doing it this way, obviously the costs are much lower, the requirements are much lower. The negatives are, though, is if you're used to closing people purely by phone, there is a step here that you might not be used to, and that is that you've got to send a text or an email to somebody to close that sale, for them to click and confirm. You cannot close with just the voice signature. Oftentimes, I hear people from call centers say, I'm working with a lot of duals, and I just need to be able to close them by phone because I'm worried about them doing, getting the text or email to click on it. So if that's the case, by the way, many people do it this way successfully. But if you really just want to go pure voice signature, that's the other way you can run a quasi-call center, is using the company's voice signatures. So if you use the individual carrier's voice signature systems, that allows you to close the cases just by phone. You don't then use an email or text to do it. The carriers have everything pre-approved, all the scripts, everything ready to go, and you can do a voice scope in a voice signature on the application, and that way you can close them purely by phone. The negatives of this are each company does this in a slightly different manner. It's fairly similar from company to company. But, there's a learning process there because each one is slightly different. Another negative is the call times can be long due to the scripts and the recordings. So the carriers have that process laid out for you. The scripts are all pre-approved, but that sale can take a while. And there are some carriers that they say they have a voice system for voice signature, but they still require a link to be sent at the end. And so if that's the case, you might as well just use Connect for Medicare or Sunfire if there's still going to be a link required at the end, because you can do all that you can do the same thing on Connect for Medicare or Sunfire. So Anthem, Aetna, UHC, Cigna, and WellCare all can be closed with the voice scope and app alone, no link needed. That's an example of some. There's certainly others, but those are the ones I wanted to mention, some of the main carriers that have pure voice enrollment, and they do. So overall, if you're coming from a call center, the additional cost and the tracking, which we'll help you with, but it's still there. The tracking, such as your licensing and your contracting, is a big adjustment. You might be coming from an environment where that was all done for you. Well, now you're responsible for it. We'll help, but again, at the end of the day, you're independent. You're your own business, and you're responsible for, making sure that you're keeping up on your licensing and contracting. The easiest transition, now that I look at the way I wrote that, I should probably have said it different. The easiest transition from an operational standpoint would be as if you could just go as an independent official call center. That way you can simply do voice signature, and there's not a lot to learn. It's not a big change from what you were doing before. However, the requirements make it difficult for most people to do. I do webinars on how to become an official call center. I might have X number of people on that webinar, and out of those people, only one or two actually have the means and the requirements in place to who apply for it. So it's not something that's realistic for a lot of people. The quasi call center using Connect for Medicare or Sunfire is the quickest way to start for sure. Just a matter of getting contracted, getting set up on both systems, buying leads, and off you go. For those agents that are just comfortable with voice signature and don't want to use an email or a text link, they'd want to use the carrier's voice signature systems. We do have all those compiled in one place on the Pinnacle website. So on the site, and I can send the link out or you can call us to get it. On Pinnacle's site, they've made a page that has the requirements for each carrier and how to get set up using their voice signatures, if that's the way you really want to go about this. Okay, I'm done. I ran about 20 minutes. If you have questions, please just send them into the webinar. I'll answer them here at the end for you. If there's questions that come up that you didn't think about, you certainly can just call or email us. For those who came on a little late, any of our webinars, we do them every Wednesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock. You can, as long as you register, you'll get the recording. So if there's a future webinar you like but you can't make it, just register and you'll get the recording, and then you can watch it later when you want. Let's take a look and see if we have any questions. Okay, good question. Somebody asked me, for when I mentioned to be an official call center, when I mentioned that you have to have 5 agents, they're asking 1099 agents or salary W-2s. To be an official call center, you'd have to have 5 W-2 agents. So they'd have to be paid agents. They can't be 1099s. That's specific to be an official call center. 1099s are fine when you're trying to get an agency level contract like a GA, MGA, SGA. That's fine. 1099s work. But to be an official call center, you'd have to have 5 W-2 employees certified and contracted and certified to meet the requirement. It's a good question, by the way. To be a quasi call center, there is no requirement. You just can have 1099 agents. That would be just fine. So good question. I'm going to take a minute here and see if we have any more. I don't see anything coming in. I will talk here for another second to see if anybody has another question for us. Well, if questions come up, feel free to give us a call. Again, we have experience working with people that came from call centers. We have experience with agents and agencies that want to try to be an official call center or operate as a quasi call center. In fact, we have a number of agencies that are operating that way now. They can't meet the requirements to be the official call center, so they're doing it through Connect for Medicare Sunfire or through the carrier's phone enrollment apps. So you can still do it. It's just a matter of how you want to operate. So no more questions coming in. I appreciate you joining me today. Oh, actually, we had one more. Hang on. To get licensed in another state, for instance, New Jersey, what is the procedure? That's easy. So to get licensed in another state, a non-resident license, you go on NIPR.com. NIPR.com stands for National Insurance Producers Registry. You go on there and just give them your money. Really, all there is to it. You only do certifications in your resident state, so you don't have to get certified in the non-resident state. You don't have to do CEs for the non-resident state. You simply go on, apply for a non-resident license, and give them your money. Once you get that license, you send it to us, and then you let us know what companies you want to be appointed with in that state, and we will get you appointed. No problem. Just be aware, some companies will charge non-resident licensing fees and non-resident appointment fees for getting contracted in a non-resident state. Good question. It looks like that's it for now. If anything comes up, feel free to send us an email or give us a call. Appreciate you coming on today. And as I said, we'll send the recording out so you have it. Oh, one more question. Do you have a typical sales script you use? Yes. I have a fairly generic sales script that you can use that would not be an approved call center sales script. It's just a sales script that people use. So we certainly have some examples of that. All right, looks like that's it for now. Appreciate you coming on, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.